Hi, my name is Emily Iannielli. This is a little different view for me with doing a video, but my phone got disconnected, so I'm down to like 30%, and I'm afraid I may lose the ability to record a full video, so that's why I'm holding it. So it's not that comfortable, but I'll try my best. I was talking to a couple of my friends, and they know what I'm going through. They know I struggle with depression. They know I'm isolated, and they are my friends. I hang out with them from time to time. One is transgender, female to male, and the other one is questioning, possibly male to female, but still questioning, not really sure. Hasn't done anything. In fact, to be gender specific, she, because she still likes to go by she, even though she looks like a guy, she wants me to kind of help her in learning more about that. So I'm trying my best, to be honest, and tell her, it's not easy, but whatever questions you have, please let me know. I also have another transgender friend in England who's had surgeries, and she's having a rough go of it right now. And then I have friends like on Facebook I chat with, and some high school friends. But basically, friends that I see and hang out with are only a few and far between, and that's why I'm isolated. I also have friends from the Mormon Church, by the way, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who have reintroduced themselves to me. So I'm getting back into that, and I'll probably need to rely on that, especially after going through all these things I'm going through and surgery and everything, because they do help people and they don't criticize or condemn people. Actually, they've embraced me, and my psychiatrist was quite surprised because the Mormons usually don't encourage people who are transgender in nature. But of all the people I've met, male and female, they've embraced me. So, and a lot of the people I meet have young families. They're young mothers, young fathers. They don't really speak to me much, but they know me and they address me as Emily and they respect me. And I'm even friends with some of them on Instagram, so they know my background if they look at my channel. So and also, if it wasn't for me to become part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and be introduced to them roughly in November of 2018, I might not be here today. So I think it was God's will, actually, because I got introduced to the Mormons and started going to church when they went over and we discussed things and read from the Book of Mormon. And I started going to church with them. Unfortunately, they can I mean, not unfortunate, but they work 2-year missions. And then after they serve, and they can go anywhere, they can be transferred. So they work 2-year missions, and then after they serve their 2-year missions, they go home. So I've become attached to some of these people involved in the missionary, and I've gone to the church, the masses, and as I said, I got introduced to this in November of 2018, and that's when I had to learn things. I was exposed to new things, and I was learning basically a whole new faith. Not that I abandoned the faith that I was born into. Sorry for all that. I don't have much privacy in this house, and I don't like to say things in front of my son that might upset him. So that's why I had to excuse myself from where I was filming. But as I said, I was introduced around November of 2018, and between then and now, I've seen maybe a good dozen elders who've come and spoke with me. But in January of 2019, I was going through a very severe depression. I was extremely concerned about my financial issues and the mortgage and all those things that come attached to family when you're raising a child, especially a young son on the spectrum, autism, and you're worried about his future and most likely have to place him in a group home. So all these things are on my mind, and I'm struggling with depression, and I'm also struggling with my gender issues. And one day, it was actually January 16th in 2019 that I overdosed on a Klonopin, which is a controlled substance, and I'm only supposed to take it as needed to help me with sleep and all. And I literally emptied the bottle. Must have been at least 50 pills. And on top of that, I took Depakote, like 20 pills. And I took risperidone, maybe another 15 pills. So you're talking about maybe over 75 pills, medication. And then I don't drink alcohol, but my wife had a glass of sherry in the refrigerator. I hate to talk about this, but so I got a cup, like a paper cup, poured sherry into it, mixed up my cocktail of whatever you want to call it, prescription meds. I took handfuls of the pills as I'm drinking down the sherry, handfuls and handfuls and handfuls, washing it down. And initially I didn't feel anything. I just felt like tired. And then all of a sudden I felt dizzy. I felt like the room I was in was spinning around. I've never done drugs before, only prescription meds. And the last time I tried to overdose was when I was like 16 on aspirin because of my continual gender struggles and undiagnosed depression back then. So I have very little recollection of what happened after I overdosed. Absolutely no recollection whatsoever. All I remember was I kept falling, and actually I pretty much did a number on both my knees, and I had no idea what was happening around me. My family was sleeping. I was in the living room, TV was on. I don't know where I was, whether I was on the couch, on the floor, but all I remember was I kept trying to get up, and I kept falling to the ground. And then I believe when my wife got up for work, she saw me on the floor. She and Matthew helped pick me up. They shook me, and somewhat I responded, so they didn't think I was dead. They thought maybe I was overtired or something, and then they placed me on the couch, not knowing really what happened, because I didn't leave any traces, like pills anywhere and all that kind of stuff. So my wife went to work. Uh, Someone came to pick my son up, and they thought I was sleeping. So, you know. And then I hear a knock on the door. I didn't realize it, but it happened to be I was supposed to have a meeting with the elders from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they knocked on the door, and here I am, like semi-comatose. I get up, don't know how I got up, don't even remember getting up. Somehow managed to walk to the door. I open the door and it's Emily. And then I just like fall through the screen. And thank God the elder was right there to catch me. Otherwise I would have fell to the floor, the concrete. And then all I remember was he said, "Get 911, get 911 on the phone, emergency, emergency. 911, possible overdose." And then I just went out. I don't even remember the paramedics at my house. I don't even know the police coming to my house. That's the last thing I remember, get 911, emergency overdose. And they saved my life, basically. If I didn't get involved with the church, I would not have been here today, because those guys who came to my house for our appointment turned out to be my rescuers. They were there first on the site. My wife didn't realize what happened. Neither did my son. They just thought I fell asleep. And it's not uncommon for me to fall asleep on the floor sometimes. I don't know why, but that does happen on occasion. I think it has to do with my back. Sometimes I have such back pain that I prefer sleeping on the floor than on a cushioned mattress. It doesn't help. So to them it really didn't seem unusual. But when I did fall through the screen door, and the police and paramedics came after my elder friends called 911, I was unconscious. I had 2 days of full amnesia. 2 full days. And I don't remember a damn thing. It happened on January 16th, which was 2 days before my 58th birthday. So obviously I was in the hospital on my birthday. And I actually awoke on my birthday. It so happened that my wife and my son came to visit me at the hospital. That's where my wife works. She works in the food area. She delivers food to the patients when she makes her rounds. So she and Matthew came up. They brought me a piece of birthday cake and my favorite soda beverage, ginger ale. And they stayed maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but I was still out cold. So they probably talked with the nurse assigned to me, because I was under 24-hour suicide watch. And when I finally awoke, I saw this tray, I saw the cake and the soda, and the nurse had told me, "Oh, you just missed your wife and son. They just came like a half hour ago, and they wanted to wish you a happy birthday." So I wish that I did see them. I was a bit sad, but I was hungry, so I was happy that they brought me a piece of birthday cake which I ate, which was one of my favorites. It has the little chocolate crunchies and the vanilla ice cream and the little jelly in there. So I enjoyed that. And after I had that, the nurse asked me if I wanted water or anything. I was kind of dehydrated. So she poured me a cup of water, and she left the pitcher by my side so I could drink whenever I needed to. I had this IV hooked up into me, I guess, because of the amount of drugs in my system. And the nurses were worried about me. They stayed right by my side all the time. We talked, got into conversations, and I even said to I said to the nurses, I've been going through a rough time, and I've been depressed, and I attempted suicide by overdosing. And they said, oh dear hon, don't do that. Your life is precious. They were trying to help me get through my depression. And they were so nice to me. And they reached out to me, and some of them gave me like a book of prayers to read to help me through my struggles, and that I'm not alone, and that I should never feel alone or take the burdens of my life upon myself solely. And that's what the missionaries do at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as well. They always say to you that you're not alone. And we all are here for a reason. And we must never fall aside of that. We should always stay firm to our beliefs and always trust in God that things will be okay, and that it's not wrong to reach out to people for help, especially when you need it. And boy, did I need help 2 days before, when those missionaries, my friends, the elders, happened to be at my house. It was like the workings of God, that it wasn't my time yet, and they were there for a reason, and I was meant to join the church for a reason. And I firmly believe that. So in essence, they, the first responders, the trauma nurses and doctors, the 24-hour rotation nurses, the food staff administrators, including my wife and my sister-in-law, who had distributed my meals on occasion, and all of the people in the hospital who contributed to me getting back on my feet, and of course my wife and my son were all there to help me and support me to get me back to a better place. Because there's nothing as worse as feeling so depressed that you feel like taking your life. I mean, you really hit rock bottom, I lost my dad to suicide. I lost my mom to mental illness. I lost a cousin to suicide. I lost my 26-year-old nephew to opioid overdose. So, going through all this pain, depression, feeling different, feeling out of place in my own body, I started to write. I've been in hospital so many times, I get bored out of my mind, so I write. Plus we would have counselors that would come and help break up the day by doing sessions, like for maybe 45 minutes. We'd have like art therapy, music therapy, composition writing, computer time where we could watch YouTube videos, but we had to have limits. You know, they had to impose boundaries on what kind of YouTube videos we were going to watch. And they generally had to be only music videos. And we would, you know, have those times during the day where we could get away from our thinking, our thoughts, because otherwise, if you don't have that, well, what are you going to do, sleep in bed all day? And they certainly don't want that, because that's not going to contribute to you getting better. So that's what their roles are, is to help the patients and to also help them communicate. And one of my favorite activities was the writing exercises. You know, they'd either give you like a picture or a few pictures, and you would make choices of which pictures you wanted to use, and then you would develop a story from just looking at the picture and studying it. It could be any kind of story, you make it up. It could be based on your impression of the photo. So I found that kind of interesting. But my favorite kind of inspiring writing was where they would give you like little strips of paper with words, you know, sentences. Like, for instance, God is on my side, or day by day, or it doesn't always rain, there is sunshine, things like that. Things that would provoke you to write something. And then you develop some writing out of that little sentence. Another form of writing that I enjoyed was where we would just free write. Free writing is just writing whatever comes into your mind. So let's say I'm thinking about my son and how I miss him and my wife and family, and I'm in the hospital now for over a week, and I just want to get better so I can go home. So I write about what I'm thinking about my son, my wife, my family, and how I miss them so much, and how I can't wait to get back to see them and hug them and be back as a family. You know, those are the kinds of writings I like. Plus, I also like, I like to just write, like, let's say, when they give out pictures, I like pictures that are nature inclusive. Like, I love pictures where you got the blue sky, you got a beach, you got like seagulls, sand, free of people, just nature by itself. And also it could be like a beach where people are gathering, that's fine also. And then I look at the picture and then I write from that picture and relate my own personal feelings about it, and like creating a story basically. And it's funny because in the back of my mind, as I got older, after being working in the accounting profession for roughly 30 years, and also coming from a technical background where I did study engineering for part of my college career, specifically mechanical engineering, and then I studied to become a CPA. So my education was strictly around technical classes and financial classes and math and science classes that I never really gained an appreciation, though I did take some other class. I did take French, 2 semesters of French, conversational French. I did take 2 semesters of English composition and English for engineers. I did take classes in gym. I took like racquetball, tennis, swimming, bowling. So I had that also, that appreciation. And I took a class in child psychology. I took a class in industrial psychology and a class in industrial economics, which is typically a class that industrial engineers study. So I had a pretty good, well-rounded course of study between engineering and accounting amongst 3 different colleges, universities. But as I got older and then I became disabled with my depression and coming out as a transgender woman, I started to develop an interest in writing. You know, I'm still trying to figure out if I can write a book about my life. You know, I don't know if there's a way that I can integrate my own experience growing up, struggling with depression, not even being diagnosed with it, seeing my parents' struggles financially and mentally, dealing with alcoholism in the family, dealing with mental illness in the family, dealing with me being having gender struggles, growing up with 2 sisters who were pretty much independent from 13 on, where they just took off and did their own things. Obviously, we still lived under the same roof, but I was like the one who was pampered, coddled, worried about more than my other 2 sisters. I think my sisters started smoking cigarettes, both of them, when they were like 14 or 15. But they stopped, thankfully. I'm not trying to say bad things about them. I'm just saying that that was how they grew up. I didn't smoke, but that was my personal choice, you know? And then as they get a little older, they start drinking, you know, and luckily I didn't do that either. I was kind of the goody-goody, you know. I was mom's favorite, I guess you could say. And my sisters kind of knew that. So they were rebellious, you know. We really didn't have much communication amongst each other. My 2 sisters were more closer than I was. I was born in 61, my middle sister 63, and my youngest sister 67. So obviously between me and my youngest sister, there was 6-year gap. Between me and my middle sister, there was 2 age gap. And between my middle sister and my younger sister, there was a 4 age gap. So in our early childhood, before my youngest sister was born, it was just me and my little sister, and we were still young. And then when my youngest sister grew up, and my middle sister grew up, so let's say when Kathy was like around 13, I was 15, and Joni was like, she was like 10 or 9. So my sisters drew closer to each other despite the age gap, whereas I was more like a loner. You know, I couldn't relate to them because they were girls, and I'm born male, a boy. So we didn't really get to relate much other than when we had photographs. Like I remember we had pictures where I would sit on a Tonka truck with my middle sister. I remember those kind of pictures we took at studios and stuff. But conversational wise, we didn't relate to each other. Nor did I relate with my youngest sister. So I was basically lonely growing up. But I had baseball. I was a Little League baseball player, which I enjoyed. That actually helped me a lot. And if it wasn't for my neighbor's brother, I might not even have been in Little League. He just happened to see me on occasion having a catch outside on the street with my dad in Brooklyn. We just throw the ball back and forth. My dad wasn't really a sportsman, but he knew, having a son, that a typical father-son activity was throwing a baseball together. So we would have a catch. My dad was lefty, I was righty. And, we'd throw for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And it was fun. And I had coordination. I could see the ball, I could throw the ball, I could catch the ball. And my dad as well. And then my neighbor's my neighbor's brother, I believe his name, I can't believe his name. I believe it was Kevin, if I'm not mistaken. Kevin Derbyshire. Yeah. Kevin Derbyshire. So Kevin, would watch me and my dad catch. And then he called us aside and said, look, he asked me, do you like baseball? And I said, yeah. He said, have you ever played in a game, like a formal game? And I said, no, I just have a catch with my dad. And he spoke to my dad and said, I think it would be a good idea if you got your son into Little League Baseball. And my dad was listening, and he agreed. He said, yeah, I think you're right. So the next minute, I realized that he had some affiliation to Little League. So he ran into his car parked in the garage of his sister's house. He went into his car, and he must have had papers and stuff. So he brought over two forms of papers, and he said, you need to fill these out, and you need to go to like the American Legion Hall, wherever they had the sign-ups, and you go with your son, you fill out and you make sure you have identification and where you live, your address information, and a phone number. You give it to them, and then they'll fit you with a uniform. I don't remember how they determined what team you'd be on. I don't remember how they determined what league would be appropriate for you. All I remember that we filled out paperwork, and I don't think they assigned a uniform right away, if I remember correctly. But we would fill out the paperwork. Then I think, we had to fill out our age, obviously, our skill level. And that's where I think that's how they determined what league would be most appropriate. And then like a week or two later, we get a call, we go to the Legion Hall, and then they would give us a uniform and introduce us to the coach or give us a phone number to reach out to. And that's how I got involved in Little League. I joined Little League in 1969. How can I forget that? That was the year the Mets won the World Series. And my mom and I were big Met fans, so I remember that as if it was yesterday. And then the Walking on the Moon with my dad, watching that with my mom in the living room. So 69 was a year that I will never forget. I was, my first team I played for was the Indians. So I was playing with the Indians for 69 and also 1970. And wouldn't you know it, that in 1970, our Indian team won the championship. Yup. We had one of the best records in Little League in our Canarsie leagues. I think we played like 18 games, and we were like 16-2. We were in first place. We were dominant. We had a great team. This was my second year in Little League, and you're talking, I was 61. I was 9 years old. 61 to 70, yeah. 9 years old. And I was a good ball player. I'm not bragging or anything, but I played shortstop, second base. I was a contact hitter. And I remember we celebrated, went out for pizza after. We would go out for pizza after we won a game anyway. But when we went and won the series, we not only went out for pizza, but we also went to get ice cream at Carvel. And I remember we had this dinner function to celebrate and receive our trophies. And a day before the ceremonies at the Carlisle on Avenue D in Brooklyn, which I'm not even sure if it's even there anymore, my coach the day before said, "I have a surprise for you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he wouldn't let me know. He said, "You'll find out." So I'm thinking, what does he mean? He's got a surprise for me. I had no clue. So I was a little anxious to find out. And I remember his name too. Oh God. I committed myself to saying I remember his name, and now I don't remember. Oh, Mascarella. Jeff Mascarella. Yeah, he was my coach. He was great. I love Coach Mascarella. And he taught me baseball, basically. Him and his assistant coaches. They taught me how to field. They taught me how to catch. They taught me how to swing and hit and make contact with the ball. They taught me how to read the pitcher. They taught me how to interpret how the pitcher was going to deliver the ball. Now they taught me how pitchers like kind of hint when they're going to throw a curveball or a slider or a fastball. So they basically taught me all that kind of stuff, which is kind of advanced if you think about it. But in Little League, you learn basic fundamentals right away, if you want to survive in Little League baseball. It's not like a bunch of little kids just hanging out and throwing balls around. We played serious baseball, competitive baseball, out to win trophies. In fact, parents would get super involved in the games, and if you made an error, they would criticize you. Like when you're at Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium or Citi Field now, you know how they get on you, boo, you suck. It was kind of like that in a way, and we're just like little kids playing baseball. And I guess we're playing our parents are living vicariously through us as playing baseball. That's the only way I could, make sense of it. So my parents and I were, I think my youngest sister was too young, but I think my sister Kathy came, and we sat at daises, and you could see the trophies on a table. It's not like the Academy Awards with a red carpet or anything like that, but it was a nice way. They had all the trophies set out. They had the championship, the division championship. They had special honor trophies for various titles. And they even had a guest representative of the Mets, a catcher, who I knew because I was a big Met fan, but maybe not many people have heard. But the Met who made a speech afterwards, after all the trophies were handed down, given out, and we were eating dinner, and then he made a speech, was Duffy Dyer. Duffy Dyer was a Met catcher back in 69 and 70. I believe 69, I believe he was on the World Series team, but I know he was on the 1970 team, and I'm almost willing to bet that he was on the World Series team as well, 69. And he was a really nice guy, Duffy Dyer. He was so personal, humble. He wasn't the best catcher on the team, but he was a really nice guy. And if they give awards out for really nice guys, he definitely would get one, because he really is. And he is. I hope he's still around, because my impression of him was that he really was a really cool, nice man. And he even shook my hand, and he even autographed my trophy, which I thought was pretty cool. And so they started announcing the teams. Obviously, they started from third place on. So they announced the third place winners, the second place winners, and us, the Indians, first place. So they called us up as a team, and they mentioned all our names, and we all got our trophy, our championship 1970 trophy for team champions, series champions, 1970 Little Flower Baseball League, Canarsie, Brooklyn. And then the coach, when I received that, he said, "Stick around, my friend." And I said, "What?" He said, "This is what I was telling you about yesterday." And I said, "Okay." So he said, "Don't stray too far from your table." So then I went back and I sat with my parents. And then I had the special accolades trophies that they were giving out. So they had trophies given out for most valuable player. They had trophies given out for rookie of the year. They had trophies recognizing the pitcher with the best record. They had trophies recognizing pitchers who had shutouts. And very rarely, but it did happen, even pitchers who had no hitters. And last but not least, they even had a trophy recognition for most improved player. So as they're delivering these trophies out for the various categories, they get to the very last category. And they say, "And please come up to the stage for most improved player." Edward Donald Iannielli, come up to receive your trophy. Most improved player, 1970 season, Cleveland Indians, or Indians. And I was stunned. And my mom was like in tears. And my dad shook my hand and said, "Good job." I hugged my parents, and then I ran up, and I was crying. And I remember my friend, Dennis, I made a mistake, Dennis Derbyshire, if he didn't get me involved in Little League, I would never have had that opportunity. So I owe him a lot, because he helped me to become a decent ball player and even get recognized for that. He knew. It was like he was almost like a talent scout, and he could judge a person right on sight if they would be successful in the game. And he did. Dennis, not Kevin, Dennis. I can't believe I muffed up his name. Dennis was very instrumental in me getting involved in baseball, Little League. And I was so proud. I even wanted to show it off to him. I was just so proud. My parents were so proud. Even my sister was proud. And that's the first time that I can imagine where I was proud of actually receiving recognition for an achievement It was something else. It's like one of those precious things in life you never forget. I'm 58 years old. I was 9 at the time. We're talking nearly half a century ago. And I remember this as plain as day. I remember this as if it was yesterday. And it was a magical moment. I can't even imagine what it must feel like to win an Academy Award. And I'm not going to diminish what that feels like. But to me, this was like my Academy Award. Being recognized for a sport I loved. And being recognized because of my talent and my desire to learn and play and be a part of a team working together. And that brings me down to another point, that a similar situation had developed in my high school days, where I was a very shy person, quiet, focused solely on my schoolwork, very shy with the guys, shy with the girls, just very, very shy in general, kind of like a loner. And I was on the lunch line. I've said this story before, but it needs to be repeated, because I was on the lunch line, and out of the blue, a teacher who I never had before in high school walks up to me, looks at me, and says, "I want you to run for my cross-country team." And I remember saying, but I never ran. I didn't even know to address him as coach or anything. I just said I never ran. And he said, "That doesn't matter." He said, "You can run if you want to. If you want me to teach you, I will." And I said, "Of course, yes, definitely." So he said, "Come to my office at the end of the day, and we'll fit you for a uniform, and we'll get you out there running with the other guys." And there was also one girl on the team as well. She was a pioneer, but I'll mention that later. And I was so happy, because I was a very shy young man, struggling with many, many things. My mom and dad were both suffering with mental illness. I was struggling with depression that I wasn't even diagnosed with. I was struggling with something that I could never tell anybody. But since you all know me now and you've seen my many, many videos, I was struggling with my gender. I always identified as female, even though I was born male. I preferred dressing as a girl, but I never did in public, obviously. And if I did dress as a girl, it would be strictly at night, at home, or when my family was out and I was alone. I would wear dresses, I would wear anything that girls wore. I would go to sleep under the covers in a dress if I could. But this was all throughout my childhood days, even my young adulthood days. But when Coach approached me and asked me to run, I said, why not? This is an opportunity for me. And I'm a shy person, and usually opportunities like that don't come around. So I believe it was God's will, like I mentioned before. I believe it was God's will that I run for Coach. And I will never forget how much he loved all of us. We were teammates. Some of us were fantastic runners. I mean, we broke records. Some of us barely finished races. But Coach taught us something very important. He said, "I don't care if you finished the race in first place or last place. All I care is that you put your best effort into the race and you complete it to the best of your ability. And you cross that finish line and you be proud because you finished the race. I don't care if you came in first place. I don't even care if you came in last place. I just want to know that you put your best foot forward in that race and you stuck with it and you crossed that finish line. And that's all I care about. He didn't give special treatment to any runners, whether you were the top of the top and won a scholarship to the best colleges in the country, or you were just like a junior varsity scrub. All he cared was that you put your best effort into your racing and your practice sessions. And he saw that I did that. He knew that I was serious and I was committed, just like I was committed with my schoolwork. And he loved me for that. In fact, he loved all of his team members, all of his proteges, runners, champions. And he didn't treat me any different from the best runners of the team. You know, I could go through all the names of the players. You know, I looked up to players like runners like Ira Myers, Paul Welsher, Teddy Canova, Timmy Canova, Kenny Eisenband, Scott Carlin, Glenn Wolin, Jay Gottesman, Richie Kogan, Barbara Davis, the girl I was telling you about, David Kraslow, Scott Blaufo, so many names, I wish I could remember them all. Andy Banks, so many. And we even had a recent Solder, Kenny and Mark Solder, Roger Luchan. We had a gathering recently, just a few weeks ago, Sunday at Sunken Meadow Park, one of the courses we used to run. And it was great. 40 years later, we have a reunion with all of our, well, not all, but a good number of our teammates. And it was fantastic. We had a wonderful time. You know, we got to celebrate Coach. Coach is like in his early 80s now. Still the same strong-willed coach that gave us motivation, taught us life lessons. Truly an incredible, inspiring man. I love him so much. I owe so much to him. He's made me a better person, you know. My parents too, but Coach was very special. He knew what I was going through as far as my family history, and he helped me tremendously. He taught me how to become a man. He taught me how to live life and take risks and challenge yourself to the best of your abilities. He taught me all those wonderful things. And he paired me with so many great teammates, people I loved. And I'm very fortunate to have met at this beautiful picnic arranged by his daughters. I met him, the coach, I met the daughters, the wife. I met my former teammates, Eddie Lenahan, who I never ran with, but a really nice guy. Others who I don't know or remember their names. But it was truly a wonderful experience, something that I will value and treasure for the rest of my life. And I am so grateful for that. My life is not perfect. I am going through many struggles. I have an autistic son. I'm transgender, anticipating male to female surgery soon. I've been through a traumatic car accident. I've been depressed. In fact, I slept all day today because I've been so depressed. I'm excited about surgery. I'm nervous about surgery. I'm worried about my car issues with insurance, and all. I'm worried about my mortgage. But I need to take a break. I need to take a breather, and that's why I think I fell asleep most of today. I was even supposed to go to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I overslept. I left a message. I felt so bad about it. But I was pretty depressed today. I slept most of the day. And when I get really depressed, that's generally what I do. I try to write when I'm not feeling so good, or videos like this to help me cope and try to help other people in the process. Plus, it's good for me. And basically, I am trying to live day by day. I have a son I'm worried about. You know, he's autistic. He's having difficulties. You know, I need to do the best I can for him. I need to encourage him. I wish he had someone like Coach, like I did in his life, that could have inspired him and helped him get on track. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So I have to try to figure out now, as he's now 20, how best to get him on the right track. Because it's not college right now for him. Work, obviously, no. Group home, definitely. We have to figure out when, how, and we have to do a lot of homework. And this is on my mind. Plus now I'm, preparing for surgery on September 10th. And there's also a 40-year high school reunion coming up in October 5th, I believe. And I had mentioned to one of my friends, a girl that I text quite often, and I said I'm not going to make the reunion. And she said, well, you don't have to pay until a specific date, and give it time before you decide not to go, because you may be feeling better. And basically, if you need to sit, you'll sit. You don't necessarily have to make all the rounds. And, people will talk with you. She said she would talk with me, so I left it at that, and I said, okay, I'll try my best to make it, because I had a great time at the cross-country reunion. So I'm sure I'll be okay at the high school reunion, even though I'm transgender, male to female. I'm sure most of my classmates, if not all, will accept me and treat me with dignity and respect and love, because I am a good person. I'm not bragging or anything, but I am a good-natured person. I'm not perfect. I will never claim that. But I do have a good heart. I do care. I worry about my son every day, and I've been struggling basically all my life with being transgender, with depression, with dealing with family tragedy, and there's only so much you can take, I even tried to take my own life, so I know what it's like to hurt inside. And I've been in this horrific experience with this car accident that still weighs on me. So I'm trying to get back on track, and trying to deal with my life issues and being out of work and being disabled, and trying to make the best of the situation, and trying to filter out the horror show in Washington these days. Otherwise, I'll just go insane. I gotta filter all that negative stuff out. I am definitely not a fan of this administration, so I gotta let it go. Can't deal with that. Anyway, this is Emily Iannielli, T-Girl Angel. I love you all, and I'll see you soon again. Thank you. And if you're feeling depressed, if you're having trouble coping, if you feel isolated, lonely, have no one to talk to, reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member you trust, reach out to someone. If you have to, call the suicide hotline. Otherwise, if it's dire emergency, call 911. You're a good person. We all suffer. We all struggle. Get the help you need. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. We all need help. Life is hard. We have to struggle to live each day. Your life is worth it. You're precious. People love you. I love you. Go get the help you need.